Hey guys, and welcome back to our YouTube channel, Mastering the Wedding Photography Biz.
I'm Hunter.
And I'm Sarah.
And today we are going to share 4 reasons why we believe that once you have photographed a wedding day, it is in your own best interest to share the final image gallery not just with your clients, but with every professional wedding vendor who worked on that wedding day.
And one of the ways that we were able to rise into the luxury market in just a few years is through network marketing. And what we're talking about today is a big part of that. So let's dive in.
So earlier this year, Sarah and I saw a photographer post a question in a Facebook group. A young gal who had just photographed her first wedding was contacted by the venue that the wedding was at, and they asked basically if they could just have access to the images that she photographed during that wedding day at their venue. So she was asking this photographer group whether or not it made sense for her to share the images with that wedding venue.
Now, this is a really great question to ask, and we were honestly grateful that she was asking it in the first place. After all, sharing images from a wedding day was totally new territory for her.
Here's the problem. Hopefully, if you guys are in any Facebook groups like this, you are, aware of this issue. But unless you're in a group that is being very actively moderated by a professional photographer who you trust and who you know has found the kind of success that you are aiming for, like in our Facebook group, Mastering the Wedding Photography Biz, then what happens is when you ask a question, there are probably going to be successful and experienced photographers answering the question right next to people who have no idea what they're doing or are just getting started running their business, or people who have been, who ran a successful business 20 years ago with methods that don't make sense or work anymore.
Yeah, and this, of course, was yet another one of those cases, since the first person to respond to that new photographer's question jumped in with just an absolutely terrible piece of advice.
Which seems to happen 50% of the time.
90% of the time. So they told the new photographer that she should charge the venue to access the photos and also make them sign a contract with her stating that they will tag her, not alter the images, and also limit what the venue could use the images for.
So honestly, the rest of this video is going to be our 4 reasons why we think that that was really bad advice and what you should do instead if you are a professional wedding photographer.
Now, this post was not in our Facebook group, but we immediately wanted to jump in and share a totally different take. We told this new photographer that making a venue sign a contract as well as charging them in order to access the images that they took at that venue was a great way to never be recommended by that venue or invited back to shoot there again.
Now, as a wedding photographer, networking with other wedding vendors in your local wedding network is honestly one of the most important and inexpensive ways to get leads and also to grow within your local industry. Now, if you're just getting started with weddings, you probably haven't really encountered this yet, but trust us when we say if you stick around a local wedding industry long enough, you're going to begin to realize that everyone sort of knows everyone, right? No matter what size city or town you're in, the local wedding vendor community, the professional wedding vendors in your town, it's going to feel like that community is more of a small town than maybe you realize right now.
And naturally, this means that anything that you do that will make one vendor either really appreciate you or be really annoyed by you will likely not just stay with that one vendor. Like we talked about in our branding workshop earlier this year.
Link up here, by the way, if you're interested.
A huge part of your brand is essentially your local reputation among the other wedding professionals.
And like Sarah said, being incredibly generous or being super stingy with the images that you produce is a great way to impact that reputation, either for better or for worse.
After all, you may have taken the images, but without the florist, the venue, the planner, the dressmaker, what would those images actually look like? It's easy for us as photographers to think that the images we capture are just 100% created by us.
And to a degree, they were.
Yeah, and we aren't the only ones who contributed to them. And recognizing the work of others and freely sharing your images with them is a great way to create a really positive reputation.
Now, last year, Sarah and I did a 10-part video series called 10 Free Marketing Tactics for Photographers. And one of the big marketing avenues that we explored and discussed in that series was this idea of network marketing that we're going to talk about a lot in this video.
Yeah, and basically this means reaching out to other wedding vendors and building a community and a network in your local wedding industry. This can not only help you book jobs, but can also help your entire industry thrive and build a sense of community in an industry that can otherwise feel pretty lonely or isolating.
Now, if you want to check out that video, link is up here, but you might remember from that video that we talked about the difference between upstream, midstream, and downstream vendors.
Think about it this way. Most every couple books their wedding vendors in roughly the same order. They will almost always book their venue first, since the dates the venue has available will determine their actual wedding date, and they can't really book anyone without that. And if the couple is going to use a full service planner, well, that's kind of next, since their planner is going to help them book the rest of their vendors.
Basically, every other professional wedding vendor is what we call either midstream or downstream relative to photographers. And so midstream is someone who is likely to be just as likely to be booked before, around the same time, or after a photographer. And so these are things like a caterer or maybe a partial service planner. And then for photographers, downstream is anyone who is almost definitely going to be booked after us. And so these are things like the cake artists or the rental company, who couples will probably wait until a little bit closer to the wedding day to book.
So whether you are a wedding photographer or a florist, focusing on networking with vendors who are upstream from you is a great way to potentially get lots of referrals. So for photographers, the only people guaranteed to be upstream are venues and wedding planners. And if you are a lower budget photographer kind of just getting started, you probably aren't working with full service planners yet. So that just kind of leaves wedding venues.
And so if wedding venues are somewhere between half and 100% of your network marketing strategy, and freely sharing your full galleries with them is a really great way to win favor, as well as remind them about basically just how great your images are, then sharing galleries with the full vendor team, or at least with the venues, feels like a no-brainer to us.
The thing is, even if we didn't particularly love shooting at a venue or working with a particular vendor, we are still going to share the gallery with them. For starters, like we mentioned before, every vendor contributed something to that wedding, so that just kind of feels right to us. But on top of that, you never really know who knows who.
Maybe we didn't love shooting at that venue, but for all we know, maybe the person who owns that venue also owns this other venue in town that's like one of our favorites. Or another example is like, maybe we didn't really love working with that florist, but maybe her best friend in the whole world is a wedding planner who we would love to work with another time.
Because that's the thing about reputation. You have very little control over how it spreads. All you have control over is how you behave. And so we would rather everyone in our town generally have a positive view of us than try to pick and choose who gets access to our imagery and just end up offending people throughout the industry.
Now, there is one exception to this, and the only time where we intentionally don't share a full gallery of wedding images with a vendor is if that vendor substantially and negatively contributed to our client's wedding day. Basically, if they totally screwed up, we don't want to share the images with them.
Yeah, so if someone really just blows it on a wedding day...
We're not talking about they weren't the easiest to work with. We're talking about major catastrophe.
Yeah, we're talking about the wedding planner who got drunk at the wedding and caused a ton of stress and anxiety for our couple, or a bus driver who ignored just all of the planner's directions and arrived 40 minutes late, making everything 40 minutes late.
Which these are two very real and true scenarios that have happened to us in the past.
Yeah, we often just hold back our images out of respect for the couple. After all, if it felt like one of the people you paid to help you run your wedding day actively made it worse, the last thing you'd want to see is them using images from your wedding day to advertise their services.
And so that sort of leads us right into our fourth reason, which is when you send the final gallery, not just to the wedding vendor, the wedding venue and the wedding planner, but also to florists and rental company and stationery and bus driver, all of those different vendors. Now, all of those people are going to be sharing your imagery. And because don't forget, the thing is, everyone needs new content for their Instagrams, but no one else has the advantage of being a professional photographer. And so every other vendor that you work with on a wedding day is really dependent on the photographer to choose to share the images with them if they're going to have anything to post to their Instagram this week.
So if you are sending your galleries just far and wide, and potential couples are researching the wedding industry in your area, they're not just going to see your imagery on your Instagram, but they are going to see your imagery all over the websites and social media pages of the people throughout your local market.
And that third-party validation as people are searching really just affirms your value, and it's going to make people more likely to remember your name when you come up. But finally, let's talk about the practicals of how we do this. So after we deliver a final and full digital gallery to our couple, really the very next email we send is to share it with the full vendor list. And again, we mean the full vendor list, everyone down to the transportation company and the people who rented them the linens for the reception tables.
Now, obviously, this means that we are going to need a full vendor list, hopefully with email addresses. So if our couple or a wedding planner did not give us a vendor list directly, then we make sure to ask for one before the wedding. If you wait until after the wedding, you will probably not get that. But this way we can either do a few like quick Google searches and get everyone's emails, or at least like know who to tag in the images that we post to social media.
And when we send that email with the full gallery, we make it really clear that we hope they use and post our images to social media however they want. We say you can use them on your website if you need to. The only thing we ask is when posting on social media, and if it makes sense for their website, to just give us a photo credit, to tag us as they post to social media. And then we make sure to include links to our own website and social media in case they do want to tag us. We want to make it as easy as possible.
Mm-hmm. Now, have there been vendors who have in the past shared our images and forgot to tag us? Of course there have.
Yeah.
But there have been way more vendors who faithfully credit us, use our images all the time on their social media pages and their website, and who love recommending us to couples because they know not only are we going to do a great job and serve our couple well, but they are going to get the images from the day as well.
But that's it for this week, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you want more great content like this delivered directly to your email inbox, then use a link in the description below to sign up for our 4 Photographers newsletter.
When you sign up, we will send you a copy of our ebook, 5 Essential Tips for Turning Your Side Hustle into a Full-Time Photography Business, as just a free gift to you.
And of course, please like, subscribe, all those good YouTube things, and let us know in the comments if you have any questions.
All right, see you next week.